Welcome back. Well, this is a video I probably should have made a couple of months ago, but I didn't. And I'm sure for reasons that will become obvious, I haven't really wanted to. I brought you along on the adventure of repairing and restoring the schoolhouse. The schoolhouse is my 1852 one-room schoolhouse that was damaged when a tree fell on it last year. So, where do we sit with that now? Well, I will tell you when we come back. Let's start by taking a look at the schoolhouse. And this is Kiley Secrest's beautiful painting of my schoolhouse. The tree on the left side of that painting. Now, the door faces south, so the left side is the western side. As you stand in front of the door, you're looking north, so that's the western side. That tree is the one that fell on the schoolhouse. 200-year-old oak tree, a good 40 feet tall. Bang. Ooh, that was a disaster. So I had a contractor come in, take a look. In fact, I had a couple of contractors. I went with the one who got back to me, frankly. If the other contractor I had discussed the project with had gotten back to me, I would have gone with him first. He would have been my first choice because I had worked with him before and I believed him to be an honest and responsible contractor. I also believed he knew what he was doing because I have worked with him before. So I went with another contractor who was sort of an unknown quantity. So why would I do that? I'm in the middle of nowhere. It was very hard to get anybody to even come out and take a look at this job. It's not like being in the city where the yellow pages are full of contractors or the internet. And I've lately come to understand that around here, contractors don't seem to advertise. They must be getting their business by word of mouth. I don't know how they do it, but I assume everybody just knows everybody around here and everybody knows who does contracting. It's all I can imagine. Initially, the contractor, and I'm not going to mention his name, things worked out okay. I cannot say I was thrilled with every step of the job, every part of the process, but it wasn't a dreadful disaster either. Things started going wrong in the second half of the job. So, actually, I'm getting ahead of myself. Things probably started going wrong from the beginning. I asked repeatedly for a written contract, and I asked orally, in person, out of my mouth, repeatedly. But because this contractor doesn't like to talk on the phone, he likes texts. I texted him on at least 3 occasions that I've got in my phone saying we need a written contract because the total cost of the job was going to be $38,000, which is too much money to spend on a handshake. And that had been my position from the get-go. Well, obviously that changed because he didn't give me a contract. So what happened? Well, winter started coming. I had a building with no roof, with a lot of personal property inside it that needed to be protected and I had to get this going. I had to mitigate my losses, you know, minimize my losses by getting some sort of covering on the roof. I had to get the job started. So that put a level of pressure on me to go ahead without that written contract, even though my common sense told me I needed a contract. So we went ahead with an oral contract. Now, you're probably thinking, as many people do, oh, an oral contract is not binding. Oh, yes, it is. Absolutely, it is. A written contract is much easier to enforce because the terms are all in black and white and everybody has signed. But an oral contract is still a contract and it's still enforceable. It's just a question of it's not going to be quite as easy to enforce. So, we don't have a written contract. Now, this is how the situation fell apart. When we proceeded with the job, got toward the end of the job, things started going wrong. For one thing, the trusses and the new trusses were custom fabricated to line up with the old trusses. Well, they didn't. And the contractor, who had already been paid for that part of the job, by the way, I should throw that out. That part of the job had already been done. He had been paid for it. Had decided he wanted more money to resolve the issue of the new trusses not matching up to the old trusses. My position was the new trusses were custom fabricated. The point of custom fabrication was so they would match up with the old trusses exactly. That was the job. That was done. That, of course, they were supposed to match up. If they didn't match up, it certainly wasn't my problem. It was the contractor's failure to do the work properly. He didn't see it that way. I mean, of course he didn't see it that way. And that was our first sort of dispute. And at that point, he said, well, this isn't included, that isn't included, I'm not doing this, I'm not doing that, and I want to be paid. And in the end, he walked off the job because I said I was not paying him. And the reason I was not paying him is, let me show you what the property looked like when he walked off the job. Here we go. As you can see, the siding wasn't finished. You could see daylight coming in through the roof. The soffits were not done. It was, oh, and of course, there was that mess of lumber and debris still in the yard. And the excess mortar from where they had done the brickwork was still dumped along the side of the building. And those of you who saw the landscaping videos remember that the landscapers had to remove that mortar mess. They had a cat with a scoopy, I don't know, little bulldozer come in and scoop that stuff out because it was such a mess. So, also the door, one of my doors, let me show you the door. That door had been damaged when his crew had left it wide open and it just got slammed. They left it wide open and left material in the path of the door. So when the wind came, just smashed into the material they left behind, door got smashed up. That was off the hinges and on the other side of the building. So he walked off, they didn't even put the door back on the hinges. They just left it. So no, I was not going to pay. The job was not done. It was not even close to done. I'm not sure that's how the contractor saw it. But eventually he did approach me again saying he wanted to finish the job. But he never did. I mean, in other words, he was saying, I want to get back and do it. I want to get back and do it. But he and I agreed initially, but he never did. And months went by of, well, I'll be there next week. I'll be there next week. And so that gave me the time to have the building inspectors come in. I had 2 building inspectors come in. That's not normal. That roof was not properly installed. I had other roofers come in, look at the job. They said, no, this is not properly installed. So where we are today is I'm not going forward with him and the work, whatever it is. No, I'm going to have to pay somebody else to come in, take down the roof he put up, and then finish the job. That's all there is to it. I really do not have a choice about that. This roof cannot stay. You can see daylight coming through the roof. I told him this, by the way. That was one of the reasons that I had cited when I said, I'm not paying for this. The job isn't done. I can see daylight coming in through my roof. I actually have his text saying, yeah, you're supposed to. I swear, his text, you're supposed to see daylight coming in through your roof. The reason I'm not going forward with this contractor is how can you go forward with someone who is saying you're supposed to be able to see daylight coming in through your roof? I mean, you know the old expression, don't pee on my leg and tell me it's raining? Yeah, that doesn't even come close to this. So, what happens next? I don't know, to be honest with you. The contractor has told me that, he's going to sue and attach my property and so on and so forth. Can he do that? Well, this is America. Anybody can take anybody to court for anything they want. Whether or not the court will even hear the suit is another matter. In order to sue somebody, you have to have legal standing. You have to have some legal principle for which, you are asking the court to hear your case. Someone has done something to me, I want redressed. That sort of thing. Now, of course, I suppose theoretically he does have that. But am I worried about this? Does he have a case? Of course not. I mean, you saw the pictures. Daylight is coming in through that roof. And by the way, I took those pictures. It wasn't even a sunny day. On a sunny day, it's incredible the amount of light that's coming in. No, I mean, the siding isn't completed. You can see that. The soffits are not done. By the way, the contractor had said, well, you said you didn't want the soffits. It's like, yeah, because I'm going to pay $38,000 to have a roof redone and then say, oh, what the heck, I don't need those soffits. I love having my roof wide open under the eaves. Let those squirrels come on in. That's craziness. Of course I never said that. It defies common sense. And so is this even sensible? Can he even find a lawyer who will pursue this? Possibly. Depends. Clearly, he is perfectly willing to look at me and say, yeah, daylight's supposed to be shining through your roof. If he's willing to do that, he's willing to lie to the lawyer. And if he's willing to look at me and say, yeah, you never, we talked about soffits and you said you didn't want them. Really? Yeah, because people do that all the time. This is someone who may well be able to convince an attorney, to at least file a case. Do I believe it's going to court? Not really, no. I would have to say that's very unlikely. If it did go to court, a picture is worth 1,000 words. Am I worried that a court is going to say, I must pay this man for a roof that has to be taken down and redone? No, of course not. Because even if we do get into court, by the time we got there, I would already have had that roof removed and replaced. So, it goes without saying that it had to be done. Anyway, that's where we are at. So, remember, it's never just the glass is half empty. If it's half empty, it's half full. There's always something you can take away from an experience like this. That's what we're going to talk about today, because there's no point in going through something like this if I don't at least have something to tell you so that you can avoid this on your own. One, I kept saying I need a written contract. Why didn't I stick with that? I knew I needed a written contract. I knew $38,000 was too much money to spend on a handshake. I knew that. I felt pressured because winter was coming. I needed a roof on that building. Well, how do you deal with that? Here's how. I did not actually need a full legal contract. What I could have and should have done was written up a memorandum of understanding. Lawyers call that an MOU. Oh, by the way, I'm not an attorney. This is not legal advice. So keep that in mind. I am not a lawyer. This is not legal advice. This is just consumer advice, one consumer to another. I should have written up what I expected in terms of the job. If he didn't do it, I could have just gotten a pencil and piece of paper. I wouldn't have even needed to write it on a computer. Just could have scribbled down, I want the roof replaced. I want the soffits replaced. I want this. I want that. And listed things like I wanted the materials to all be up to code, which is something I knew going in. It wasn't as if that was something that occurred to me after the fact when the building inspectors looked at it and said, boy, this won't meet code. I knew that going in. I knew I wanted the materials to meet code. I knew what kind of materials I wanted. I should have written down everything. And if I didn't know, I should have gotten on the internet and looked it up so that I could have just written down, here's what I want. This is the gauge of metal I want for the roof. You can find that out on the internet. You just sit down, type it into the computer, take a look at what quality roof you want, write it down. I could have specified the exact overlap on the panels. I should have. I want at least a 6-inch overlap because that happens to be standard in the industry. How do I know this? Because after the fact, I did look it up. Should have done it before the fact. I have to tell you, I never would have written up, and I want to make sure daylight doesn't shine through my roof. That wouldn't have occurred to me in a million years. So I'm not sure how I would have protected myself from that. But I think that I would have done okay if I simply listed the materials and said that I wanted the workmanship and materials and so on done according to normal standards in my area. Something vague like that probably would have at least protected me. I certainly should have said that I wanted the soffits. That was part of the job. I knew that was part of the job. We discussed that, the contractor and I. We discussed that. But as I say, later when he got cranky, he was like, no, you said you didn't want it. Well, of course I never said I didn't want the soffits. But if I had written it down in that memorandum of understanding, he wouldn't have had anywhere to move on that. He ended up using a type of siding which was not the kind I wanted. I had specified clapboard, and he had gone with something else instead, siding called shiplap. I have no idea why he made that change. I am assuming he did it to cut costs. I don't know why. This was not a low-budget job, so I have no idea why he did it to cut costs. But I assume that's why. I don't know why he would have chosen shiplap over clapboard in any case. I wanted clapboard because it's an 1852 building, and clapboard is the normal kind of siding that was used. I should have been very specific. I should have also been specific about the crew removing all of their own debris. That would have protected me from having to have landscapers come in and haul out all of that excess mortar they had just slopped out in the yard. I should have been very clear about any damages done by the crew were to be covered by the contractor, so that when my door was smashed, it would not have been an issue. By the way, that's still not an issue because he texted back repeatedly saying that he would repair the door, which he never did. But regardless, that wasn't one of the issues. I'm not sure how I would have dealt with the idea of his taking responsibility for the trusses, the new trusses matching up to the old trusses, because that, I don't even know how he has determined in the space between his own ears that if his new trusses didn't meet up with the old ones, that it was my fault. I got no idea how he figured that one out, but he did in fact feel that that was not his responsibility to match the new trusses up to the old ones. Not a clue. But again, as I say, this is part of the reason I'm not going forward with him. He does not think the same way I am used to people thinking. Let me just put it that way. I do not find him reasonable. Frankly, I don't even find him rational most of the time. That's an issue. Trying to figure out how I could have avoided that one, I don't know. I think that's something I only would have figured out as time passed. And probably only when something went wrong, when, he's screaming and howling and threatening. The biggest thing, though, is that I should have put something in writing. Now, granted, it wouldn't have been a contract. The difference, by the way, between a legal contract and a memorandum of understanding, and again, I'm not a lawyer, so this isn't legal advice, is that a contract is intended to be legally binding. A memorandum of understanding may or may not be the basis of a contract at some later date, but its purpose is to outline the understanding between people without necessarily being legally binding. So you may be thinking, well, what's the use of it? It lays out the understanding very clearly. I'm looking for this, that, the other thing from you. In exchange, I'm willing to give you X number of dollars. You sign off on it, I sign off on it. And there we go. Is it a contract? No. There would be a lot more in a contract than this. But is it better than nothing? Absolutely. Well, what do I have at this point in terms of a contract? Almost nothing. We had an oral agreement. And as I said, an oral agreement is contract. It's just as enforceable. It's just harder to enforce because I can say one thing, he says another, and then it's he said, she said. So how do you know what was really there? Okay, lesson to take from this. Number one, write it down. Always. Absolutely. Number two, which is one of the things I've learned from this contractor, when you start to feel your contractor may not be operating with both oars in the water, walk away. Walk away real fast, because I probably should have brought someone else in 5 months ago. As I say, the contractor walked off the job 6 months ago. A few weeks later, I should have just brought someone else in to finish this job instead of allowing him to waste all this time, all this good summer time, because now we're going into fall, and now I have a roof that obviously leaks. I mean, if you can see the sun shining through it, you've got to know the rain is coming through it as well. So I have a roof that I have to get dealt with. Now, what I will tell you is I am talking to other roofing contractors. I should be able to get someone in within a couple of weeks, and they're telling me that the roofing, the whole job basically is less than a week. The roofing is probably going to be 2 days at most to remove the roof, throw up a new roof, and actually cap it off and seal it up so, no light and no water is coming through, which I always thought was, like, by definition, a roof is the thing that keeps the water out of your house. I never thought that was something, negotiable. Yeah, well, you can see the light through, you're supposed to. No, never occurred to me. So, are we going to get it done? Yes. Could I have saved myself a lot of time and trouble along the way? Yes. How could I have done that? Writing things down. Even if what I had to do was write it on a napkin and hand it to the contractor and say, sign off on this. So I will know next time. But like I said, I'm making the mistakes so you don't have to. Learn from my mistakes. All right. I will see you guys tomorrow. Meantime, I don't know about you, but I really need my happy little horizon pictures, because today I just sort of really need that calm. I'll see y'all later. I almost forgot to announce our winner of the Peacock Vase. And I know I wouldn't have made very many friends doing that, would I? This is now going to Kate Beckman. Kate Beckman, get in touch with me, and I'll tell you where to email so that I can get your address and get this sent out to you. So this is now Kate Beckman's Peacock Vase. All right, now we get to go see our happy little horizon pictures. Now I get to say, see you next time.